when I see someone debating about, guns and say, oh, I don't believe people should have guns. These people, they have never been out of the States. They never been to a country like Brazil or Venezuela or North Korea. You know, it's too easy to be a communist in a free country. If you go to a place called favela, which is like the poorest places you can go in Rio, there are literally like drug dealers walking with AK-47s, ARs, pistols. Not even the police in Brazil have those type of guns.
Sweet. What's up, everybody? I'm super stoked. We have an awesome guest today, John Proyecto Utah. Mm-hmm. He's doing some awesome stuff, so I'm super stoked to just like dive right in. Could you give like a little intro about yourself? What even got you into doing? Because you've really blown up on social media.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here with you. We would like to thank the store, Ready Gunner, for opening the doors for us today.
Yeah, Ready Gunner here in Orem. Let us come in, shoot the podcast, so come stop by.
So I was born in Brazil, and I always wanted to come to the United States since I was very little. So I grew up surrounded by missionaries in Brazil, and I grew up in the LDS church. So when I was very little, through the missionaries, I saw that there was a whole world beyond my hometown. And I've always been passionate about the story of the United States, how this country was founded, and how awesome it is to live here. And after my mission, I had the chance to move here. I moved to Utah in 2018, and I've been here for the past 7 years. I mostly work in IT. I grew up with computers in Brazil, playing video games and hacking my school to change my grades, So that was pretty awesome. So I ended up falling in love with the story of the Second Amendment when I moved to the States. And in Brazil, we don't have anything close to the First and Second Amendment. So guns has always been a very, controversial topic in Brazil because I've seen with my own eyes since I was a kid what can happen when the government take guns away from people.
When did the government take the guns away from people in Brazil?
That was back in 2002. I was 8 years old, and there was this whole conversation on social, on television about, giving your guns to the governments because they were saying that the country would be safer without guns, But when you talk about giving guns back to the government, you're not talking about the bad guys. You're talking about the law-abiding citizens that will follow the law. And then in 2003, they put this law, which we call Disarming Act, and basically most people had to guns. Basically, all the people had to give their guns away to the government in exchange of some money. And after that, violence just increased a lot in Brazil. Only hardcore criminals were allowed to have guns because obviously they don't follow the laws. And I saw with my own eyes, because I was there in Brazil, and I saw what can happen when people give their freedoms and their guns to the government. And after that, this left side party in Brazil just became stronger, and then they just tried to implement communism in Brazil, and that's what we see happening in Brazil ever since.
That's wild, and I don't think people realize how close we are with people that are trying to get rid of guns here in the U.S.
Yeah,
that it's not going to be any different. Like the people who are going to keep their guns aren't the ones that are good, the law-abiding people. It's the ones that are going to get guns regardless.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to do what they're still doing, but if not even worse, because the people aren't there to defend themselves.
That's true.
So as you've kind of launched your platform, what inspired you to like be
start
another
all-
voice? Yeah.
Yeah, so to be honest with you, when I moved here in 2018, I was very curious to see, a gun store because we don't have this in Brazil. Like this doesn't exist. Like a place where you go and buy guns like freely. We don't have that. So when I moved here in February of 2018, someone took me to a gun store, and as I got there, I felt something really, really strong. I think it was a calling from God, something like that, telling me that I should start something to educate people about how important it is to have guns. At that time, I didn't know anything about guns. I was not a shooting instructor. I had no idea what I was gonna do. And 2 years later, the idea of opening a channel became more solid for me. And that's how I put it all together, invested a bunch of money in buying cameras and gear to start putting content out about freedom, about guns, and safety. And that's how it started. As the years passed by, my page on Instagram not only became like a platform where people can go to learn about guns, but I ended up, bringing more things that helped a lot of people down there, such as the importance of, having a family, the importance of going to a church. Like it doesn't matter what religion you are, the importance of being a man. And also, I love bodybuilding, and I also post a lot of stuff about fitness and my journey at the gym. And it's just like a page where guys go to find like some comfort. And like 2 years ago, I went through like a hard experience with divorce and stuff like that. I lost basically everything. And I also lost a lot of my self-esteem. And when I start getting those messages from my followers and say, "Hey, John, thank you so much for what you do, because uh, because of this video you posted, I started going back to the gym. I lost 20 pounds. I'm getting muscular," or something just like, "Hey, thanks for saying what we cannot say in Brazil." And around a year ago, Brazil just became really, really bad with politics. The current president, the current government, they are hardcore criminals, and they are just censoring a lot of people for speaking against the corruption, because again, we don't have anything close to the First Amendment. If you say something against the corruption or what's happening right now in the country, you can literally get arrested for saying that stuff.
Well, that's what's wild. I don't think people really realize how it starts. Because at first it
Yeah,
started
it
like,
starts very little, like with the promise, "Hey, give me your guns and I'll make you safe." That's how it started, with the sweet talk, and you lose your freedoms little by little.
well, and then it just starts going down and it unravels the whole road. So it's like goes the guns, then it goes the next thing, until you can't even post or say what
Yeah.
you want to say. And then before you know it, you're Venezuela.
Sure.
And it's like you can't even have an election anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the thing that's so concerning is people aren't aware of what's necessarily going on in our own country or even our own state. And they're fine to take a back seat and just say, "Oh yeah, I would rather not be confrontational. I'd rather not pick a side. I'd rather
Yes.
not be involved in this. So I just want to like live my life." But before you know it, the life you know and love isn't the life you have unless you do take a stand for what you
Yes.
what you actually believe in. And I think that's what's so cool about your page is it's not just like, yes, it's the things you're interested in and you like, but it's stuff that helps people resonate where they don't currently feel like they have a voice.
Yeah.
Because society wants us to feel ostracized for being a man and having manly things and like promoting
Yeah.
like bodybuilding and guns and freedom, really. And that's not what the government wants or
Yeah,
society
sure.
wants. And so I think your platform has been awesome because
Thank you.
yeah, it really makes people connect and feel
Yeah.
Like they have other people they can resonate with. And so as you've been here in Utah specifically, has there been anything that's shocked you culturally?
To be honest with you, no, but I can see some things changing in Utah. As I said, I have always been a huge fan of the United States and American culture. So when I first came here, it wasn't like a total shock. Obviously, there were minor things that I had to learn with time. So it was not that bad. But I can see throughout the years that, as far as, the political side is going, I think I can see that Utah is leaning towards more like a left side, especially in Salt Lake City. But I think the good people are still the majority in Utah. But I think people need to educate themselves about these things because, for example, the left try really hard right now picking on kids and teaching them like, hey, you can be, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, or this or this, and they are actually working on the younger generation because change someone like me or you would be completely impossible. So I think it all falls down like about like with parents teaching their kids what's right, because this is literally a war that we live, like not only a war of information but also a war of morals, and values. And you have to be really strong in what you believe and pass down to your kids so they can pass down to their kids and so on and so on.
No, I think that's so true. Is like people want to think it's left versus right, and
No, it's
you're-
not.
It's not.
It's evil against good. Literally.
It's literally the values of like, what do you value? Do you value the family or not?
Yeah.
Because the left is actively fighting against the family, like the main source of community and structure of society. They want to tear it all down.
Yeah.
And it was wild. We were speaking recently to Carrie Bartholomew, who's like super involved with education. As you see some of the things that they're trying to teach in schools now, it's not that they just like, oh, question whether you're a boy or a girl. It's like, hey, if you're a male that's white and Christian and
It's
whatever,
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're the oppressor. Like
Yeah.
you're the bad guy.
You
And
have to apologize for that.
well, and it makes them instantly as the kid be like, I'm not the bad guy. How can I less identify
Yeah.
as the bad guy? And the only thing they can start changing is like, oh, maybe I'm not like a male. I'm
Yeah.
non-binary, or
I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Like I'm a piece of paper.
yeah. And
whatever.
they're like, oh, I'm impressed now too. They're like taking on this. They're teaching the youth to take on this victim card,
Yeah.
which just completely destroys all the core tenets of societal and I think personal success. Because what's really drives someone to be successful isn't necessarily what they do in a way, but it's what they place importance on and they become successful. And they do that through discipline
Sure.
and integrity and gratitude and all those things built together, those core tenets that have existed since the beginning of time. Like you can go back and listen to philosophers in like the Greek, Roman times, and they're going to say the same things until like the 1960s.
That's
when all of a
true.
sudden it's all about personality, making people like you, like pretending to be interested in other people's interests. And it just comes off with this like fake, disingenuine thing where you're trying to
Sure.
identify to like how society wants you to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what's getting so dangerous in the U.S. But the thing that's the most concerning is it's happening here,
In Utah.
here in Utah, all over the place. And I think it just starts with those little things. And then the next thing is getting rid of guns and your ability to defend yourself.
Sure.
When you first like work with someone that wants to come in, because I think that's the one barrier to entry is people feel kind of dumb. They're like, I don't know anything about guns.
Yeah.
I don't know how to hold a gun. I don't know how to like work a gun. What's like your first piece of advice when someone to come in and start working with you? Or
Yeah, like I teach a lot of people from Brazil. Some people already had a little bit of knowledge, but some people are completely clueless. I try to be personal with each student and just go over like safety rules, how to handle a firearm. But it's just like learning a new skill. For me, it doesn't take too long to teach people to feel like confident and how to use again. Obviously, like when I teach a concealed carry classes, especially for people from Brazil, they come up with a lot of questions about, hey, can you answer this difference for me? Because in Brazil, it's this way. In the United States, we have this way. How can I understand those things and not, do something wrong? And since I took and once I've taken a lot of time studying the laws in Brazil and also here in Utah, I can teach someone in a very simple way, so even like a child can understand how it works. And for me, it's been like a pleasure working with these people because, like in Utah right now, I'm the only instructor teaching these classes in my own language. So I had to do a lot of comparisons and teach people in different ways. But overall, like I feel like I've done a considerable work because for the past 4 years, I think I taught more than 2,000 people. And I think I've done my part, because I think this whole Second Amendment thing is really important, and you have to understand how it works. It's a right that you have here in the States, but also there are consequences if you do something wrong. Because Brazil is like a lawless country. Like if you do something with a gun, the chances are you're not going to jail for too long. But here, like obviously, in like making like a rough comparison with Brazil, the laws here actually work. Like if you do something, it's jail time. You are gonna be there. So I also, make sure to teach people that okay, you have the right to have a gun on you. You can protect yourself, your home, your kids, your family. But if you do something wrong, like you have to face the consequences of your acts. So it's a huge responsibility to be a gun owner.
Well, I think that's huge that people have to understand and take seriously. When you look at like a lot of the laws that people want to pass, like red flag laws, a lot of people are like, well, that's going to make people more responsible and make sure only the good people can have guns.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
I think we already have too many laws in this country. Like in my personal opinion, the Second Amendment is the supreme law. All those 30,000 laws that we have in the States in regards to firearms are bullshit, in my opinion, because last year we had a major change in concealed carry laws, and that screwed up a lot of people. And I think that once you understand the principle of the Second Amendment, you understand that it's about keeping the government in check, but we also can use that as a tool to protect yourself. I think creating more laws and more laws and more laws, like it doesn't change anything, because if someone is already decided to do something wrong, he can go to a dark alley in West Valley and he can buy a gun from someone. That's not going to stop that person. So, like, laws are only for, law-abiding citizen. And if you keep putting more laws, more weight on people, at some point it become, like, unsustainable.
It gives more power to the people who don't don't obey the laws. And I think, like, the thing that's wild to me is it's happened time and time and time again. There's so many examples of other countries that have done the same thing, and you can see what makes you think it's going to be different here.
Yeah, and which is interesting for me when I see someone debating about guns and say, "Oh, I don't believe people should have guns." Usually these people they have never been out of the States. They never been to a country like Brazil or Venezuela or North Korea. You know, it's too easy to be a communist in a free country. In my personal, life, when I was in Brazil, I saw with my own eyes because I was there. When the government keeps talking about taking guns away from people, that's the first step for before tyranny. It's about the sweet talk. They start talking about, hey, give your guns away. You don't need them. We can take care of you. And then once you trust the government, okay, someone gets into your house at night, you might call the police, but they're just gonna arrive just to fill out paperwork. They're not gonna do anything. So when I see someone in the States like talking about, oh, we don't have guns, and I always say, bro, you don't understand about life. Like, evil is out there. It doesn't matter how many laws you create. Like, this is a fallen world that we live. It's an evil place. Like, evil is out there. So you have to have the tools to protect yourself, your family, because growing up in Brazil, I saw a lot of violence. I've seen like dead bodies in the streets a couple of times in my life when I was a kid. And it's just so awful. Like, when I was a kid, I was probably like 10 or 9, and someone broke into my grandparents' house. They put a gun in my grandma's face, and they took all the money in the house. And to be honest with you, we really don't know if things would have been different if my grandpa had a gun in the home. But we know that we didn't have that right, because at that time, guns were illegal in Brazil. And that kind of stuff happens all the time in Brazil because criminals, they have that sense that nothing's going to happen to them. And they know that if they decided to break into a home, they know nobody's there is armed. And here, people will think twice before breaking into your house at night.
Yeah. And that's what I don't think people realize is living in Utah, it's safe. People are nice. People generally are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It seems.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can see that.
I don't think that's the case. Everyone wants to believe that everything's so nice and happy and everyone's friendly out there.
Uh-huh.
But like, the government's not your friend. And they've already proven that with a lot of things. There's people in there for their own interests.
Mm-hmm.
There's people living in your areas that aren't your friends. These illegal immigrants coming in. We've already seen on the news in Utah so many times that these people have come in, and it's people are like, oh, well, you just hate people from Mexico. I'm like, no, my family's from Mexico. It's not anything against people from South America, but there's literally criminals being unvetted coming into our country. Like, yeah, we need immigration. We need people, these good, hardworking people to come in and help our economy for sure. We want to help people. But when they're unvetted criminals coming in, people have this false sense of security, and then the government's welcoming them in and then taking away your ability to defend yourselves from them and then from the government as well. And so it's like they're missing the whole point of what guns aren't just to go out to the range and shoot for fun or go hunting. They're literally like in the Constitution, it literally says it's to defend against tyranny.
Yes.
Defend yourself against your own government. And what you were saying about all the laws is so true. There's way too many. And if you look at like the reference of what our founding fathers put in of like, hey,
it's really simple,
this is it. 10th Amendment. Everything in here is what federal government should do, nothing else. And now we've taken it.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, I believe there are many laws, especially regarding firearms and, but at the end of the day, they are not going to stop anyone from doing something wrong, because let's put this way, like if you go to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, if you go to a place called favela, which is like the poorest places you can go in Rio, there are literally like drug dealers walking with AK-47s, ARs, pistols. Not even the police in Brazil have those type of guns. Not even the police. Like, how do they get those guns? They don't give a crap, And yet, guns are illegal in Brazil for law-abiding people. But the criminals, like, they don't follow rules. They will get whatever they want with.
Better guns than the government.
Yes, like I never saw like a police officer or like a higher security, law enforcement officer in Brazil using like a AK-47 or like a AR-15. Hell no, like they use really old guns. And if you go to
They
Rio,
get the guns that they got in 2002.
yes, it's freaking old. And if you go to Rio de Janeiro, like the criminals have way better guns. You
They
know,
have like one of these.
yeah, like, all of this they have. Like they have crazy stuff there. They have guns that can put down like an airplane. And the police officers have to go there and try to, and they're still there, and nothing changes. The only people disarmed are the good people.
And that's the way. And that's where we're headed. I hope people realize this. Just as we're wrapping this up, is there anything, word of advice, word of caution, anything else you want to say to people here?
Yes, like I would say, in Utah, like I still can see that this is a place to raise a family. If you're like Mormon or Catholic or whatever, this is the place. Like the West is a place to have a family. So I believe that parents, they should be aware of the dangers that they are putting out there for your kids. I think young men, I can see a lot when I go to a gym, like the guys like who are like maybe 15, 17. They don't have that sense of masculinity or hard work, So I think it's important to put out that to those young men so they can understand and be more, be ready when the time comes to act as a man. I think I would say like we need to keep morals and values all the time, protect our kids from the government and teachers, the schools, and just understand that it's important to raise a family inside those boundaries where, you don't have anything from the outside trying to hurt you.
I love that. And I don't think I could say it any better. I think that's literally it, man.
That's okay, bro.
That's literally the point. So I hope today everyone's taking away something that they can resonate with and be like, yeah, this is the time to protect freedom and to stand up for values and really take this country into your hands and stand up for what's right. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.